This morning, we're going to be interviewing Zion Gwynn, who is a shamanic practitioner. Good morning, Zion. How are you doing, my friend?
Good, and you?
Very good, very good. Very excited to have you here for our
Good
viewers.
morning.
I know through the course of my practice and life, I've heard the word shamanic many times, and I've worked with a lot of shamanic healers and practitioners in Peru and locally. And so it's really exciting to have you on the show. I think a lot of the viewers out there are very curious about your services and what you bring forward. So with that said, we're going to jump right into this. Of course, one of the first questions I wanted to ask you is, how did you get on this path as a shamanic healer, and what brought you onto it, and what was your path?
Yeah, well, thank you. I would say, ultimately, pain is what brought me to the work. So it's always interesting that the places in life that take us to these new awakenings and upliftings, and you know, whatever the pain is. I started my yoga path because of physical pain, and then I started into the realms of shamanism and shamanic healing for myself to heal my old story and my old patterns and get myself out of a loop because I was stuck in that place for a certain amount of time. So I would say, mental and emotional pain, the difficulty of an old relationship and trying to pick myself back up after that. And so that's what put me on the path to seek out these healing practices. I tried different things. I kind of bounced around a little bit and tried, different types of energy healing and different modalities. I kept doing my yoga and my meditation, but ultimately the practices of the shamanic healing that come from the Andes and from Andean cosmology, that is what ultimately led me to the path that I'm on now, and working with these teachings from the Q'ero people of the high mountains of Peru.
Interesting. And I know that we're located here in Northern California. And since I've got to know you a little bit, that you service a wide range of geographical area besides moving to online services. So you did your training, from what I understand, in Northern California as well. Is that correct? And who did you actually train under?
Okay, yeah, good question. So my training has kind of been different bits and pieces. The core training after I went through the healing work myself and cleared out my old patterns and stories and got to that place came through the Four Winds Society, and who Alberto Vialdo is the director of the Four Winds. And so he has different practitioners that are from Peru, the Q'ero people that are the Pacaos, the traditional shamans from the high mountains of Peru. And yes, the core training that I did was in Joshua Tree with the Four Winds. And in addition to the core program with the Four Winds and what they offer through the Light Body School, I also have done additional trainings with some of the teachers from Peru, which mainly I've done virtually, and until I have the space and the opportunity to get back to South America and work with some of the teachers directly. But incredible path and experience just to go through the training and learn all the aspects of the medicine teachings and the medicine wheel, go through all of those aspects of the self through the south, the west, the north, and the east.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We've heard this word shamanic, throughout my lifetime. Can you give our viewers a little bit of an overview on what is shamanic healing? What does the modality entail? And if you can describe what that word means to our viewers, that'd be wonderful.
Yes, I will do my best to explain this in an encapsulated version. So, shamanic healing is working with a few different elements, and I'll talk more about the stones and the mesa and some of the mysticism around that too. But ultimately, shamanic healing is invoking the powers of the earth and of Pachamama, and having a sacred relationship with the earth through ceremony, through ritual, through rites of passage, through various processes, and working with the powers of the cosmos, working with the celestial forces, with the energies of the stars and in the sun and the moon and um, heavenly powers, if you will. So there's a mix of different things that are invoked in shamanic healing. And as far as the process goes of what I went through and trained, and then now am able to um, assist in the best way I can to help people support their own healing journey, is a process of going through the entire medicine wheel, the entire circle. So starting in the South and doing the work of healing the past and the old stories and the wounds and the traumas that may have occurred early in life or later in life, depending on where we come from, what we've been through. And I consciously take people through that process of working with kuya stones, living stones that come from a mesa, which is an altar of stones, and sometimes crystals that carry information. So people will work with me in that process, and I will assist them through the stones. So doing the work of the South, getting rid of the old stories and imprints and wounds in the past, and then moving into the West so that we understand the journey beyond death, and doing that deep work of shadow work, the unconditional love that we have for ourselves, for others, accepting and owning all the parts of ourselves, coming into that relationship, stepping back into our power, having courage and strength and fearlessness, and taking action in life so that we can get where we want. That's work of the jaguar, and the work of the South is the serpent. And then we go further into the medicine wheel and into the teachings into the North, and that's where work around letting go of old roles and responsibilities that maybe we've chained ourselves to, but have contributed to potential soul loss and losing ourselves too much along the way. So we do that work in the North, which is connected with the hummingbird and drinking the sweetness in this life, making sure that we really go through life with that desire to live fully, completely, to drink the nectar, to feel deserving of everything that's about, and also reconnecting with our soul part if there was trauma or issues occurred early in life for us. So we do what's called soul retrieval, which is a very similar process to reconnecting with your inner child, a part of you that may have splintered away during a trauma. So that's work of the North. And then as we go further into the last place on the medicine wheel, we go into the work of the East, and we work on healing the spirit. So by healing the spirit, I mean we connect with that place of wanting to travel on the hero's journey and co-create our own reality, co-create with spirit something beautiful, something new, something that we're wanting to dream into being, rather than living through something that's an old pattern. So we then consciously move into that work of doing East work, and that's a pretty good summary of what happens.
So
In
it sounds like, as compared to my modality where I'm using tuning forks, I'm using a physical item to create an energetic field, that shamanic practices really tap into the planet, and you're utilizing Gaia's natural energy lines, northwest, east, south, and along with the mesa and the stones. So would you call shamanic healing a kind of a more of an organic earth-based practice?
Well, yeah, it's so interesting question. I mean, I think that one of the key principles that goes back to shamanism is having a deep connection with being able to see in the unseen, to be a bridge between worlds, as in the present time that we live in, and the middle world, and then the past and the collective unconscious and the subconscious, and that's the lower world. And then also we have an awareness of the upper world, Hanapacha, the celestial realm, and all the powers that exist there, from the sun and the moon and the stars and the luminous, you know, beings that reside there, no matter how we identify those. So to answer your question though about maybe some of the differences, yeah, there's a number of different things that would go along with shamanic based practices and shamanism. So we are opening portals, we are opening dimensions to connect more deeply with the earth, with the Nustas, the feminine water sources, with the Apus, the mountains, the angels, all these different benevolent forces that are here to support our healing journey or support others' healing journey. So shamanism has always had the background of deep connection with nature, going into altered states of consciousness to access dimensions and see in the unseen and assist people from that place. And then also there's that, as you said, very, very important connection with earth, with Panchamama, with this feminine source of beauty that allows us to live in this incredible planet and this garden, and to do ceremony with the earth, with the waters, with the sun, with the moon, with the stars, and particularly a lot of earth-based practices so that we can stay in Aini, as they say, right relationship with the earth, and that we do ceremony to give to the earth so that we can then receive gifts. It's a very important part of the practices.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that overview of the practices. And I think, as I said, it's just the name shamanic or shamanism has such a mystique around it. It's very mysterious. And whenever I talk to other people, they're like, yeah, what is that exactly? And so I really appreciate that answer. When we talked in the past, we kind of talked about some of the clientele that we have, and who comes to see you, what type of people search out your services. And one of the common threads that you and I have spoken about is releasing the old stories, the profiles that make up our each individual story. And those stories tend to be tied to traumas and wounds along the ways, bumps and scratches. And then you get to a certain point and you're operating out of a very narrow pathway. I don't do this because that happened once, and I don't do that. And I don't date blondes because my old girlfriend was a blonde. I don't drive blue cars because I crashed. By the time you get to be 50 years old, suddenly you got this narrow field that you're trying to operate under. And you just got so many rules. And these are really stories. Can you speak a little bit to what you see the pattern of stories that come forward with your clientele?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I can address it from a big picture view, which is people show up for this work when they're ready to answer the call. So regardless of whether it's the masculine and the feminine, and I will acknowledge that more women show up for the work and for self healing in general than men, because I think there's some differences in the masculine and feminine, and how tough or strong men want to appear. So sometimes there's a little bit of a hesitation with more men showing up. But regardless of the masculine and the feminine and who shows up for the work, the invitation is always the same. It's to show up for their own healing, to get to a deeper place of shedding that skin, shedding the past, letting go of the old story. And whether it's around loss, abuse, abandonment, betrayal, engulfment, whatever those pieces are, which are, as far as humans go, that generally speaking, although we're different, most people have been through the same types of things that they're working through. And that is the general reason why someone will show up to do this deeper work, so that they can heal those parts of themselves and start creating something beautiful, something new.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's just right now, and I appreciate your viewpoint. And I'm also seeing a lot more women coming forward right now to do the work. And I know from all my male friends that behind the scenes, there's a lot of men getting more curious, and I think they're starting to realize seeking another's help, whether it's shamanic services or other holistic practitioners, to release old stories, wounds, and injuries from life, is not coming from a place of weakness. It's actually coming from a place of strength. And, we've lost our connection with a lot of the indigenous people, the Native Americans and in Peru, all the indigenous people there, just around the planet. They have been attacked and under siege for the last 200 years and been replaced with pharmaceutical drugs. And, back in, 100 years ago, there wasn't a good feel good drug you could just go pop in your mouth and go numb over. If somebody was dealing with possession or dealing with traumatic wounds, what we call PTSD, they would go see their local shamanic healer and do a session with them. So I know you and I have talked about, and we strive to bring more men forward. We invite them to come forward, to reach out to us, and we're hoping to start a real conversation about men and where are they. In regards to your sessions, tell me a little bit how they go, how many sessions, let's say, and there's all various levels of injuries depending where each person is, but on generally, how many sessions does somebody go through with you, and what can they definitely expect to walk away with after working with you?
Yeah, so great question. And thank you for acknowledging some of those other pieces too along the way there, and some of the common threads that lead us to these places of self-healing when we unlock these processes for clients and for people to start accessing these other uh, places in themselves, taking them to a different perspective. So that's in shamanism, we really that's a lot of what vision work and vision quest work and plant medicines, and in this case healing sessions are about, with using kuya stones and accessing other dimensions. So the client has an opportunity to see the altar, to choose a stone, and to blow with the intention of releasing anything binding that's been keeping them from living in connection with their highest self and their greatest truth. And there's a little bit of conversation that happens initially, and then once someone has chosen a stone, that will relate to a particular aspect of the psyche and of their healing, their individual healing. And then the forces are invoked, the benevolent forces of the celestial realm, of the earthly realm, of the feminine water sources, of the sacred mountains and snow-capped mountains, and various forces are called in. And then, so to answer the question, okay, how many sessions? I always recommend 4, because everything is in relationship to the 4 directions. To
Oh,
are the hummingbird, the eagle, the medicine wheel, as we say in these old and indigenous practices. So everything is looked at from that place in relationship, and that's also about our self skin, and that's what is happening.
technical stuff. Okay, it looks like we're recording, and
Back into the field.
back into the field. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, coming back to the moment, I would say I always recommend 4 sessions, because everything in shamanic work, if you will, and these old practices is in relationship to the 4 directions. 4 sessions, 4 directions. The work of the South, we have to start at the South, do that conscious work of letting go of the old stories, letting go of the past, shedding our skin like the serpent, healing those parts of ourselves that have been wounded through whatever messy stuff came up in life. So that's the starting point. We do that, clear that out of the way. And by I mean clear, I mean we clear the energy imprint that's associated with that wound, that's going to live in the energy field of our energy body, and it also relates to the physical body and whichever chakra that resides in. So all these processes are connected with different chakras and different aspects of the self. So
Okay.
that's where the south work starts. Then the second session, we get into the west work. We get into removing any dense energies or energies that are attached to us that may not serve. Those are cleared. We understand from a different perspective, from a different place. We understand how to heal those mental and emotional burdens that we've been carrying too long. We work with self-empowerment so that we're not disempowered anymore. We understand how to take action with fearlessness and courage and belief in ourselves. So that's it. Shadow work, loving all the parts of ourselves, embracing all those, not, oh, this part of myself I love and this part I hate. We have to come into a better relationship with all the parts of ourselves. That's what real shadow work is about.
Okay.
And then we move further into the work of the North, third session, soul retrieval, letting go of roles and responsibilities that maybe don't serve us at this point in our lives, this part of our adventure. We embrace the medicine of the hummingbird. We understand that we need to drink from the sweetness of life. We need to move on the soul's journey, on the soul path, and connect with our inner child. So that's and there's also some ancestry work that goes along with the North. So just to acknowledge that the healing our ancestors that came before us and the ones that will come after us, healing our children's children, as we like to say.
And then the fourth session is then the final compass direction.
Yes. Thank you, Rico. The fourth session is at the level of spirit. So the four directions, the physical, the literal, the past to the south, the mental, the emotional, the west, the soul energy in the north. And then finally, destiny work, if you will, in the east. It's about the level of spirit, the energetic, the cosmos, the everything, all the starlight, all the sunlight, all the moonlight, all the everything in the field. We work with those practices to create a new reality, to dream a new world into being, as Alberto would say, and as Joseph Campbell would say, the hero's journey, so that we are the myth makers and the creators of our own story, not living through an old story or someone else's story. So that's a lot of the East work, manifestation, creation, and also the understanding that now that we've done all the work of the medicine wheel, challenges are still going to come up in life. But as those challenges arise, we'll have a different set of tools to navigate those. We won't go through things in the same way. It'll be a much different process for each person.
Love it. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask you about follow-up, either sessions or equipping your clientele with I refer to it as a toolbox as well. 2 a.m. and your ego's attacking you, and you got a loop running through your head of an unpleasant ego energy. And so you equip your clientele with different tools to mitigate these type of attacks, self-attacks, story attacks, low energy vibrational attacks. I like to use the word attacks because it kind of really separates the present self from the egoic energy, which is usually the voice behind most of the attacks. It's not us sitting there putting ourselves down verbally out loud. We're hearing that in our head. So this toolbox, can you tell us a little bit about what that might encompass, what kind of tools they come away with after working with you?
Yeah, sure, glad to. So it's yeah, attacks. That is interesting, but I get it. I mean, I think that there's a lot of people that end up coming to do this work, and not everybody, but a lot of people are tired of feeling like they're dealing with some form of either psychic attack or it's psychosomatic. Um, there's a lot of research and understanding through neuroscience and through the power of the brain now that we recognize that there's a lot to psychosomatic illness and people going into different places of disease or problems in themselves psychospiritually because they're carrying too much mentally. So that's just one way to acknowledge what you were talking about with the relationship to attacks. And as far as the tools go, once someone has been through, 4 sessions and they've done that, then they've released a lot of these imprints that were attached to their energy body. They've moved away from the triangle of disempowerment, disempowering roles and stories. So people are reconnected with their power, with their soul, with their passion, with their dreams, with their purpose in life. And I think once everybody's been through that, they understand that they have a lot of resources and tools. Now, other things that I can assist and offer as help in the toolbox is meditations and ceremony around connecting with nature so that we're in a better relationship with the gravitational field of the planet and with the moon. And so that we're in better Aini, we're in more of a sacred relationship with the reciprocity of living. And additional practices I will guide depending on the person. Sometimes people will receive additional karpais, that'd be more of a long explanation, but it's an energetic transmission from my stones to their body, and so that they can be more protected, more fortified, protected from any intrusive energies or difficult even situations that come up with people. So sometimes those practices are introduced, sometimes additional limpios or clearing processes are used to give people that opportunity to stay more fortified, more grounded, more protected in their own energy, and so that they can just walk with joy, with desire to live life in all of its beauty, and not judge themselves. And that is a form of attack too. A lot of times, our own minds are the worst attacker.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially at 2 a.m. when you're just trying to get a night's sleep and you got that repetitive loop running, putting you down. And, I always ask people that if you love yourself, would you really be putting yourself down and be so harsh on yourself? Potentially, it's not you, it's your ego and the psychosomatic brain running at 2 a.m. With that said, I want to thank you so much for your time this morning. This has been a fascinating interview for me to hear some of the more in-depth about your shamanic services. Tell our audience how they can get a hold of you, where you teach out of, and yeah, how to contact you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Rico. I think one of the things I always come up with too and come back to is it's so important in the responsibility as practitioners that we're in service to allow people to access the tools and the gifts for their own healing and their highest selves, and that is the goal, is to reconnect people with that part of themselves so that they can live with purpose, passion, authenticity, and unburdened by the past. So that's I wanted to acknowledge that, and the beautiful practices that have been shared from the Caro people and Alberto and the Four Winds. And also, yes, if anybody feels the call to cross the threshold and step forward to do this work, then I want you to know that there's always a warm invitation, and you can set up a consultation with me, have a talk if you'd like. I have a website that is inneralchemyenergymedicine.com, and I work virtually by the phone, by Zoom, so that the work is not bound by time and space. So I can do good sessions virtually, remotely, if that's appealing. And then also I offer in-person sessions in the Grass Valley region, and in Roseville and Folsom. There is an opportunity to come and see me there, and there's information on the website on the different locations where the services are available. So that's a quick summary there, and my gratitude to anyone that tunes in to participate in this conversation, and thank you.
Yeah, all right. I totally appreciate your time, brother. Wishing you an amazing day, and we'll definitely be doing up a follow up. One last question. I think you mentioned that you have something coming up at Mount Shasta. Is that something that you want to talk about or promote now at all, or is that still in formulation?
Yeah, so it is a little early in formulation. If I had a clear date that I could map out for that, I would gladly provide. That'll have to be a future conversation. But yes, I'm gonna have an offering in the Shasta region in the near future, probably towards the fall more. But I can't quite tell. Depends on a few other moving parts. But that'll be a deep process for people to engage in ceremony and connect with the sacred mountain, and then also with the water sources there, with the Nusta teachings and the feminine. It'll be a chance for people to really connect with their highest selves and energies and let things go that might not be serving. A form of vision quest work, but a slightly different format. So.
Oh, okay. Well, we look forward to hearing the announcement and the dates for that. Sounds very exciting. Mount Shasta is just a incredible vortex and ley lines running through it, crisscrossing through the arena. So there's an incredible amount of energy available for these type of forums that you're going to be holding there. Okay, well, thank you. With our audience, if you guys enjoyed this, please hit the subscribe button. You can go to Synergy of Energy and register there to be on our upcoming mailing list. This show is called the Holistic Healers and Remedies Show. It's one of my YouTube platforms. And yeah, I just look forward to inviting more men into these conversations, and going to be putting together a variety of different types of hostings where men can ask questions of a variety of different holistic practitioners and remedies who are dealing with life's challenges. So, with that note, I'll wish you all a great day, and we'll be talking soon. Thank you so much.